in terms of his time at Apple, and he came up with a formula which I try and stick to with regards to presentations, which is to work on the premise of 10 slides in 20 minutes and no minimum than 30-point font, which tries to keep things very, very concise. But it's a really good formula. It makes you kind of really think about what you've got to say instead of waffling on for hours. So I will try and stick to that. Also, the other caveat you said was to, if you weren't too sure on the font size, was to take the oldest age of the person in the audience and half it, and that's what you should be using. So just some tips going forward. But just to introduce myself, I'm Jason Cremins. I'm the founder and CEO of Signage Live. Been around since 1997 in various different guises, but over the last few years we've built a cloud-based digital signage platform which operates globally. Last month we sold in over 30 different countries around the world through a whole range of different partners into lots and lots of different applications. We're here at the show with a whole range of things to show off and the software, so feel free to stop by if you get a chance. What I want to talk about today is the shift from what I perceive as boring playlists of content that we've experienced in the past to more dynamic solutions with regards to how we deliver and manage media and how people interact with that media from a screen perspective. I talk about the consumerization of technology. I don't know if that's a term that people have started to hear at all in the press, but what it basically means is when, for example, the iPad first came out, everyone said that will never ever get into the corporate space. There's no way it's going to be allowed in. And what's happened? It's become ubiquitous in the corporate space. And it's about the consumerization. It's about the consumer basically saying, I want this technology. I want to use this in a corporate space. And I think we're starting to see those shifts now with regards to things like digital signage. And today I'm just going to kind of cover some of those areas where I think that's happening. So just to kind of hammer on about that, quite a simple statement, you know, why are we shouting and not listening? We've come from a background where basically when signage first came around and prior to signage, you know, we used to publish newspapers en masse and still do and hope that people actually like the content that's on there. We create, you know, TV programs and channels and cast them out there and hope that people view them. And the world is changing. You know, people are actually selecting out. They're getting on their Sky or their TiVos and they're skipping out of adverts and choosing the programs that they want. And so, you know, we should be listening to that and adapting accordingly. One of the big areas of shift is that, let's say, the world has moved on from a social media perspective. This was a graph that I came across, which I thought was really, really interesting and just showed the kind of shift with regards to uptake of mobile devices around the world and the applications that are being used in mobile. And I'll go on and explain the significance of this to digital signage as we go forward. But needless to say, you know, with 5.3 mobile devices in the world, we have a real challenge to make screens relevant, okay? Well, why would you want to be looking at some passive screen of content that's looping the same thing day in, day out, when you can get to your device and access information 24/7 that you want to select? So, looking at that and looking at the relation of that to screen technology, we must make screen technology engaging and the content that's engaging on the screen. We need to move away from regurgitated TV adverts. Okay, and I think generally the industry is moving in the right direction, but there are still a lot of examples of very bad, boring content that becomes, frankly, visual fatigue, wallpaper. You know, just totally, you know, useless from a point of view of achieving its objectives, whether they be return on investment or retention of information. So here's the kind of two main areas from my point of view, is that the technology will unlock the capabilities, but the content will make it relevant. Okay, we're at the stage now where things have changed considerably. You know, when we first started looking in the UK at screen networks in particular, they were called in-store TV. You know, we even adopted the broadcast terms for those. We have blogs called AKA TV, also known as TV, because the strapline was an industry with an identity crisis, and I still very much feel that that's the case. You know, we're not quite sure what this thing is, and even since those days, it's moved on even further, you know, with the advent of mobile and social. So we need to ensure that firstly, the right technology is implemented and out there, but then secondly, that the content itself is relevant to those that are looking and using the technology. So this is my digital signage investigation at Earl's Court. So what I'm going to pick here is a few points that, from my point of view, have made the difference and are making the changes, and what need to be considered when looking at rolling out a intelligent screen network as opposed to a passive and boring screen network. One of the biggest changes is the internet. When, again, we first started looking at digital signage, we were all playing around with FTP servers and satellites and ways in which we could get the data out to locations and playing it back. We looked at screens as running the same content regardless of location or regardless of position within store in some cases. And that no longer needs to be the case. With the internet, every single screen can be intelligent. You've only got to look at things like the connected TV move, where pretty much every TV that's produced today has a network connection that allows you to get out to the internet and pull up all sorts of social media elements. And digital signage should be exactly the same. Is if you're going to make this relevant, you're going to make it interesting, then you need to tap into the internet and use that. We've already discussed that we need to make our content engaging, and there's various great examples of how this can be done. We're working with organisations who move away from production cost content that comes out of TV broadcast, where you are looking at situations where you're paying many thousands of pounds to produce a few bits of content just to put onto a screen that's then redundant the following week or the following month. New organisations are coming to the fore that are providing all sorts of tools to unlock dynamic content in a very affordable way. So we're working with companies such as VSI, who are in the US, who have a tremendous platform for delivering dynamic video content, accessing rich media data, so that when that content is created, it can be fed into an intelligent screen, and that screen will respond to the changes. So the screen, hence the title of the presentation, becomes a subscriber. Okay, it's basically looking at those content feeds and seeing, I've seen that change, bring that video down. I don't have to be told to do it, I know I've got to do it. Okay. There's also organisations, for example, one that's present today at the show called Screen Feed, who again provide a tremendous platform for providing dynamic news, sport, entertainment, either in images or in video. And again, once that's locked into a screen, if the news headlines change or the sports changes, that screen will reflect that change. As long as it's connected to the internet and as long as it's set to do so, you don't have to worry about it. The screen will become a destination to the user because that information is going to change as regular as you wish it to, and certainly as often as they publish it. One of the biggest areas is user interaction and mobile. And when we look at user interaction in the first instance, people initially consider touch, and that's a very obvious one. Again, we're expected to touch every display that's out there. You've only got to look at a youngster who's had their hands on an iPad and know how to use it in an intuitive way, and you see them wander up to a TV and try and do the same. I've seen it happen with nieces and nephews. It's the way that the world has moved, and we need to embrace that with touch technology and make sure that digital signage networks incorporate that. But interaction doesn't have to be just touch either. We're working on lots of different projects with our own platform where we're looking at the proximity of the screen and how we want to influence what's happening on that screen. So from the canned kind of response in the past, such as changing things based on temperature, changing things based on the physical location of the screen if it's a moving vehicle using GPS, or even the most basic things such as picking up a product from a shelf. We've done a project not too long ago with Estee Lauder with Lab Series for Men, where they basically wanted to create an experience which wasn't relying on obvious technology. So instead of having, press this button or touch this screen, what they used was some RFID tablets, which they put underneath the shelves, and then put product RFID tags on the product. So just by general human interaction and just being inquisitive of picking up a product, the screen would then play the information related to that, and then cross-sell and upsell and play other media that was associated. And they were able to track all these interactions and work out how to merchandise the store in the right way to get the right results. So user interaction can mean a whole range of different things that changes it. Another cool example we have is that we use sonic sensors in some instances, so that we can actually change the content that's being displayed in accordance to how close the person is to the screen. So it's bouncing the sound waves back and changing the content to a different playlist. Another great example we have is working with Intel AIM and their camera technology, whereby it's analysing the audience, male, female, gender, age, ethnicity now, and putting all the obvious kind of security and personal information aside, which they cover off with their own side of things. From a technical point of view and from an objective point of view, we're working on applications, for example, in auto dealerships, where we're generating dynamic feeds of used car data, and that data is then being changed on screen based on the person that stood in front of that screen at the time. So you're advertising different categories of cars, whether that be a teenage female or a middle-aged male. And it's been incredibly successful. Okay, so a couple of good examples of what we're doing there, and what can be done with intelligent solutions. And then mobile, which is a big play, and mobile with regards to digital signage started off as just simple text now, SMS, coupon type solutions, which have now been kind of superseded primarily by QR code technology and obviously the advent of NFC, and with Apple bringing out NEC in their new models, Samsung with with NFC coming through, it is going to be a technology that will be of great use to personalise content on a screen. And there's obviously seminars, etc., running at the show over the next 2 days regarding that technology. So the whole thing needs to be considered, as a complete whole. And we're finding now as well that when designing content, it needs to be considered across all of these different screen types. Okay, tools such as HTML5, which we've heard a lot because of the fight between Flash and Apple, not allowing it on their iPhone and iPad devices, and sticking with HTML5 has brought it really to the fore. And there's some great tools now for creating applications that will work equally as well on a large format display and on a mobile phone, and you can see some of those on our booth as well. Social media, we check in, we like, we review, we upload. There's not probably one of us in this room, one way or another, that isn't touched in some way by social media, whether it's just, regularly checking into Facebook to see what the rest of the world is up to, or whether it's checking in when we walk into this venue with Foursquare. And social media has a major part to play. It's a glue. It gives, again, the screen a destination. It provides something that's interactive. We just launched today a solution with Play Network, who provide music solutions, background music and profile music solutions, whereby we are now triggering social media content on the screen based on the current artist playing. So that we're actually trawling the web, pulling in Twitter, Facebook, images, everything related to that track or to that artist, and putting that on the screen dynamically whilst that song is playing. And that just shows the power of combining these different elements to create a complete solution that's very, very dynamic. And that's the point I wanted to move on to here, is that this isn't just a silo approach anymore. This really is a complete hub, what we call a media hub approach. You can't look at these things in isolation. You've got to consider, we're looking at different environments where there are audio, whether it's retail, leisure, hospitality. What's the impact with regards to visuals, and then the ongoing impact in terms of social and mobile? How do we create this complete solution? And the tools are available today, and just don't end up down a cul-de-sac. In terms of the technology choices you make sure that if you're rolling out a digital media network, that it is digital media and not digital signage. Signage will take you only in one direction, and the world is no longer that linear. Okay. this is a really interesting stat. I'm not a big one for putting various statistics up there because they can kind of be shouted down or looked, but Ofcom are a pretty credible organisation in the UK who every year produce a marketing report on the media world in generally. And I had to trawl through 700 pages to find the one that I really wanted to use at this particular talk. But the big thing from my point of view is everyone talks about the target demographic and that 75% of the workforce plus in years to come will be driven by the current 16 to 24-year-old age group. Well, if you look at the middle, look at where we are or have been with regards to the digital signage. We're in that watch TV mode, that passive mode, okay? And the staggering statistic there, when asked what they would miss most in terms of the way they consume their media, TV in that age bracket is only 23%, with the internet and mobile outstripping that. So it shows that the power of these mediums has to be considered when we're putting together our digital signage and digital media networks. And you can see the contrast of obviously the older generation and how things are kind of tailing off in that direction with regards to 65% of the 75 age group plus still very much tied into the TV world. So the world is shifting, and that will continue to shift. A personal example of that is my daughter doesn't have a TV in her room. She's an 18-year-old. She's never had a TV because she consumes all the TV she wants on her laptop or on her phone. She goes to choose to get what she wants. She uses her social networking. She doesn't want to sit there and flick through channels that have been fed to her. And we need to look at our digital media networks in the same way. So, this is kind of brings it all together really from my point of view, is that this is a great example of a screen that actually subscribes. It kind of ticks all the boxes. This was an application we worked on with an organisation called Insteo, who are based out in Los Angeles, one of our partners, where they've created a HTML5 based application which works equally as well on a large format display as it does on a mobile phone. So the premise here is that this is in a event or a conference, and it allows people to go up, see what's happening on the screen, and then to zap the QR code on the screen and take that experience away with them on the phone. Okay, equally as well, all served from the one piece of technology. And that's where we need to get to. So, whether it's this example, whether it's an example of a car showroom that's providing you information on used cars, and you need to be able to take that car away for wife approval maybe, or an estate agents like we work with at the moment, where they've got QR codes that take you straight to the mobile experience for that particular property. We need to be thinking about this in multi-dimensions, not just as a passive screen or a touch screen even. So that's my kind of whiz through. So I wanted to keep this very, very succinct and just kind of get across to you the points that I wanted to make today. So let's just kind of recap on a few of those. We've spoken about the fact that we've come from a world where we were shouting, frankly, whether it be TV, whether it be newspapers being fed to us, and we're not listening anymore. The world doesn't consume their media in that way anymore. We jump on our phones, we look on websites for our media. Newspapers are generally in decline, all the other things that people say. So we need to bear that in mind when we're building our digital media networks. Let's get engaged. Let's make sure that the content is engaging, that it's actually relevant, that the screen is a destination, that people want to look at it because it actually means something to them, both at a personal level and at a location level. The choice of technology and platform has to be married with that of content. Don't go looking down a path of having some passive solution based on price that allows you to achieve today's goals, when the reality is that's not going to deliver on the return on investment that you're going to need today and tomorrow. So you need to bear those things in mind and make sure that you actually make those choices wisely. And we looked at the facts, the facts that people aren't watching TV the way they used to. And if they're not watching TV in their comfort at their homes, where they're in that kind of sit-back mode, as they say, why would they do it when they're actually in that busy mode, when they're out and about and all the places that we want to be talking to them, whether it's at a retail shop, whether it be in a cafe bar or on a train. We've all got other things on our mind. So make sure that you're considering those things and making those screens engaging. And then finally, let's look to turn those screens into subscribers. So we need to bring all that together. We need to look at a complete cross-media way of approaching our networks nowadays. including mobile, including social, and audio and visual solutions. Thank you very much for your time.